If you're into vintage stereo equipment, most likely you are buying and selling your vintage gear on the private market. What if I told you there are people in every single city that are making some pretty good money buying and selling or flipping vintage stereo equipment? And if I can make a 9-year career out of buying and selling vintage stereo equipment in a state that's 85% farmland, trust me, anybody can do this. In this video, we're going to look at flipping vintage stereo equipment. We're going to look at some of the mistakes I've made and I see other people make, how a video game inspired me to start a vintage stereo resale business. I'll share some of my secrets with reselling this equipment over the years that will save you a lot of time, get more money in your pockets. I'm sure this video is going to make some people angry, but let's talk about it because I do think a lot of people buy and sell vintage stereo equipment just so they can get the next piece, so they can get the upgrade. Let's do it. Let's flip some stereos. This video is brought to you by skylabsaudio.com, shirts, hats, slip mats, audiophile records, SACDs, headphones, and more. Thank you for supporting the channel and our small business here in West Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you. I had a realization a while ago when I was playing World of Warcraft. I was in Ironforge, I was buying jewels, and then I was reselling them, as opposed to my friends that were going out into the world and hacking on rocks all day in order to get a jewel. I would buy them cheap, and then I would resell them for more money. And I was really good at it. And I remember sitting there thinking, I kind of enjoy this. Why couldn't I do this in the real world? If I spent half the amount of time I do playing this game and focused on buying and selling things in the real world, I might actually be able to make money at it, and then I wouldn't have to hang drywall or flip burgers anymore. And so I told myself, the next time I get into a hobby that I'm going to really deep dive into, I think I'm going to take this idea and apply it to that. And then a few years down the road, I got on Craigslist because I was looking for a stereo, something that I could plug a turntable into. Lo and behold, there was a $40 Harman Kardon 330C. So I went and bought it, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe how good it sounded, how cheap it was. I was in. I was on Craigslist every single day, refreshing the electronics section like it owed me money. I was on the hunt. I couldn't help it from that point. I felt like I had won the lottery with that receiver. I wanted to hear all of the vintage receivers, and the only way I was going to get to do that was to go buy them, try them out for a while, resell them. That started all of this. And there's no way I would have gotten to this point if I truly didn't love the hobby. And I do think you almost need to be a little bit obsessive about what you're selling in order to be good at it. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. On the flip side, when buying and selling something you love or you're very interested in, it does have some drawbacks too. It does kind of become work. And after you feel like you've seen everything, you've heard everything, it does ruin the allure in a way, but I wouldn't trade this experience for anything. I still love vintage electronics. It's just not as exciting as it was when I first started this, when I still had so many pieces of equipment to explore. And if you want to be good at buying and selling vintage stereo equipment, I'm telling you, the amount of research you're going to need to do is going to be kind of crazy because you can only buy so many lemons before your money's gone. You have no idea how many pieces of stereo equipment, turntables, receivers, CD players I have bought that are unrepairable. And usually when you're buying electronics that are unrepairable, that means other people have that same model that's unrepairable. So the parts market for that unit is going to be saturated too. With some of the more popular receivers or speakers, if something has a catastrophic failure in it, something can't be repaired, most likely you're going to be able to sell some of the parts and hopefully recoup some of that investment. Nobody wants to buy your parts for a piece that they can't fix either. So a lot of times you just end up scrapping the whole unit and it's just a loss. On the positive side, with AI, being able to do so much of that research for you now, which would have made my life a lot easier at the beginning because I was going through every audio karma forum looking for information on the difficulty to repair some of these items before I bought them. Even finding the value of a lot of these pieces is a lot easier with sold listings on eBay, where you can at least go and see what they've been selling for. I think about this a lot. You know, the resale business 20, 30 years ago before eBay had to have been just like the wild, wild west. You know, how would you know what something's worth? You would just have to buy things and hope you're right. And this is painfully obvious because almost every time I go into a thrift store now, you can tell somebody's on their phone and they're going through eBay listings to see what it sold for so they don't buy something they can't make money on. Personally, I would rather just buy and sell something that I have a natural interest in. That way it doesn't feel so much like work. I feel like I'm probably going to look that stuff up anyway, so I might as well just take that to my advantage. And that brings me to my next point. Not into vinyl? Maybe you're not into CDs, tape cassettes, reel to reels, posters. You should be, because most likely if you're out buying vintage electronics, the people you're buying from, there's a good chance they have these, or they have CDs, or reel to reels, or vintage rock t shirts. This is a tip somebody told me about a while ago, and they were absolutely right. And that is if you go to a garage sale, you go to a thrift store, antique sale, anything, doesn't matter. If you're buying vintage electronics, you should also be asking, do you have vinyl records? Do you have cassettes? Do you have CDs? You don't know how many times I have said that, and the person will say, oh, yeah, we've got a bunch of vinyl records in the basement. We just didn't think anybody would want them. I've had situations where the vinyl collection is worth more than the stereo I was buying. Don't make that mistake because you're already there. You put the gas in your car to get there, and you've taken the time out of your day. You might as well grab it. If you can't at least double or triple your money off that record collection, selling it even to just a record store, then you really overpaid. But most likely, if they thought they were worthless, you're getting them cheap. And most likely, you're saving them from going into a landfill. So you might as well make the extra money. Also, don't forget to ask about furniture, record storage. Record storage is in such demand. You might as well optimize your time. I've never had anybody get upset with me because I asked. You have no idea how many times I've bought and sold things from other flippers or other retail businesses. You need to network. I know most businesses done online at this point, but it is absolutely paramount to make these connections with other people in the community, whether you're trying to sell something to them or they're referring business to you. If I didn't have the relationships I do, I would have missed out on a lot of opportunities either to get rid of things or to buy things. I mean, we've had referrals from Best Buy, other stereo stores, estate sales, local auction houses. Just making a simple business card with your phone number, email, way to get a hold of you, and some keywords of what you purchase or what you sell, and then taking those around to any business local to you that you think might come across equipment is one of the best things you can do. And try and make friends with them. Don't be an asshole. We've had referrals from places that would have been totally off my radar. Even Best Buy sends people to us. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, but if somebody older has this equipment, they're not in the hobby. Who do you think they're going to call when they need to get rid of equipment? They're going to call Best Buy, or they're going to call another stereo shop in your town. And if they don't want to mess with vintage electronics, which most of them don't, they just want to keep the customer happy, refer them to somebody else, and you're going to get the call. Before I had a brick and mortar store, this is exactly what I did. I made friends with the people that run the estate sales, auction houses, any antique dealer in town that didn't want anything to do with vintage, record store owners. you name it. I became friends with them, and my phone just started blowing up. Be nice, don't be a dick. Make a business card, hand it to people. A lot of times you want one piece out of a collection, and the seller only wants to sell everything. So, in order to get that piece you want, you have to buy it all. And even though you're picking up a lot of stuff you know you can't sell, you know you can't fix, you've got to figure out something to do with it. I know people that are spending a lot of money in storage fees to sell equipment they're never going to be able to resell, and that's not a good thing. And for a lot of you out there trying to keep the significant other at bay, knowing that you're about ready to pile in 6 more sets of speakers, you might have to start wondering if this is worth your marriage, because it becomes a problem pretty fast. Trust me, I know this one from personal experience, and a lot of you out there do too. And if you do need to buy an entire collection, and I guarantee it, if you're doing this long enough, you're gonna, having those connections with the estate sales, with the other flippers in the community, it's going to come into play. You don't know how many times I buy a big collection and I've already got 3 people I have in mind for everything I don't want. And even if I'm just breaking even on that stuff, or in a best case scenario, I can sell the other stuff to get essentially what I want for free. And that's a win-win because they're getting something they wanted. I'm essentially getting the stuff I wanted, possibly for free. And that's just good karma all the way around. Everybody wins in that situation. The seller got what they wanted. I got to reinforce a relationship with another business or another flipper. I got what I wanted, maybe even at a better price. And maybe the biggest tip for you out there that already have a side hustle established, if you can get to the next level and get a space, and I'm not suggesting that you go out, get a commercial lease on a space. If you can get a space that you can say, I am here for these 2 days. Here's my number. Here's my email. I buy vintage stereo equipment. This takes it to a whole new level. Skylabs actually started out this very same way. I had a friend that had a resale business. She mainly sold vintage, mid-century furniture. And we worked out a deal to where I could have a little corner in the back of the shop. I could put up a few stereos and people could bring in their stereo equipment they needed to sell. It was perfect. It brought her a different demographic than she was already getting. And every Saturday and Sunday when I wasn't working, I was there at the shop, buying and selling equipment. That's all you need, a couple days a week. In a record store, antique shop, even a stereo shop that doesn't want to mess with vintage electronics. You're bringing in people that normally wouldn't come in. You're getting to make more connections. You're able to get equipment cheaper. Everybody wins. But having a commercial space where people can bring their equipment to you, they don't want to mess with Facebook. They don't want people coming over to their house. A lot of times people come into town to settle in a state, maybe somebody that passed away. Then they got to get back home, get back to their life, and they just want to liquidate everything as fast as possible. They don't want a lot of money for it. They just want it gone. I just can't stress to you enough how big of an advantage it is to have a commercial space with set hours and contact information. It's huge when it comes to being able to buy equipment and get it at a decent price. And that is not taking advantage of people. You are paying money for a space for that convenience. So they don't have to get on Facebook, Craigslist, and eBay. Not everybody's comfortable with that. I'm not sure if I talked you out of it or talked you into it. You're looking for a side hustle, or maybe you're just looking for a way to buy that next piece. If you can keep upgrading or even making lateral movements in a hobby that you love, that you're going to do the research on anyway, you might as well do it in a way that you're not putting your own money into it. You know, that is one of the best things about vintage electronics, is it really doesn't have to cost you money if you don't want it to. If you put in a little bit of effort, you do the research, you can buy it right, you can resell it right. I do think the negativity with the word flipper isn't really warranted. Amazon's flipping products, Walmart's flipping products. Anybody that buys and sells anything in order to make any money at all is flipping something. Now, buying and selling concert tickets or Taylor Swift RSD records and then selling them for 5 times the amount on eBay, that might be in a little bit of a gray area. And I get that because I've had to pay some crazy prices to go see a band I want to see through a scalper. I don't think the time it takes to know the market, to take your time and your gas to go buy pieces of equipment, to take the losses for the ones that aren't repairable, that are a total loss, is easy. And I think that's what this comes down to. This isn't easy. If I was lucky and I was smart, I would have just gotten into something easier to buy and sell, like vintage coffee cups or Pyrex or comic books. Any one of those would be way easier than these big, heavy pieces of electronics that you can't ship. They're hard to fix. But if you love them, what else are you going to do? It is what it is. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely watch that one. It's a good one. It's fun. I promise.